Okay, well, here we are live, and this is Bruce Buxton. I'm the Graybeard, and it's good to be here today in Newtown Square. I'm not the guest, well, I am the guest, I guess, and Michael O'Donnell, who's with me, is hosting me at the Newtown Square office of SAP. I'm here with Michael O'Donnell, who is the National VP for Utilities for SAP. Michael, welcome.
Bruce, thanks for having me, and we're doing it live. I'm excited. This should be interesting.
Well, the people who are watching me should know. I'm going to see if I can pull up the comments. I'm running the board again, just so everybody knows. So be gentle with me. We have Tom Tercio in the house. Hey,
All
Tom,
right.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming. Anybody else who's watching today, please put in the comments where you're watching from, so we know who's watching us and we can have a good conversation, knowing who's paying attention. But at any rate, I'm here with Michael O'Donnell, and I'd like you to take a minute and just introduce yourself.
Sure, Bruce. So, as you stated, I work for SAP. I'm the National Vice President of our utilities practice, and have been with the company for 21 years. And pretty much for the majority of that time, I've been in the utility space. So it's been quite a run.
That's cool. That's great. 21 years is a long time to be at one place. In our day and age, it doesn't happen all that often.
No, and it doesn't feel like 21 years. Some days it feels a lot less, and then there's other days where I feel like I've been here for 100. So
that's great. Well, we'll get to know Michael a little bit better as we go on through the show today. Those of you who've watched before, you'll know that this is the first time that I've done a live show with any of my guests. So this is kind of a dry run for me, or not dry run. This is something of an experiment for me, and I'm hoping that the outcome is really good.
I just want to state that I was told 5 minutes before we went on that this was his first time he was doing a live stream. So
that's right. He does. I did catch him off guard with that one a little bit. So want to welcome Tom, and Mark Hollis is in, and Abhishek is in as well. So thanks for joining. Prakash is in today. I will go ahead and read out your names as we go a little bit further in discussion. As we normally start the Where Matters show, I normally start with a quote of the day. And today I'm going to start with two quotes of the day. Today I'm going to give two short quotes from Jack Dangerman. Now this is a Where Matters. This is at least the premise of the whole conversation, I think, from my point of view, at least has a component of location in it. So Jack Dangerman, as you know, is the founder and the president of Esri. And here are two things, I think, two quotes that are particularly interesting to our conversation today. One of them is Jack said, the application of GIS is limited only by the imagination of those who use it. And then the second one is knowing where things are and why is essential to rational decision making. And you read those. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think the first one's become more and more true as the years have gone on. I think the technology evolution and our ability to be able to really leverage maps and all the capabilities around that has definitely grown. And so now it really is a question of us using our creativity and our imagination to figure out new and creative ways to really leverage the capabilities that the map gives us.
And I think you'll see in our conversation today, SAP is attempting to do that. Their integration of location and spatial data into the work streams, into the analysis, is very far reaching. And I see that the utilities practice is kind of leading that from what I can tell.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that we've done from an investment perspective with GEF, but also with the work we've done specifically with Esri. And Esri replatformed ArcGIS onto HANA, which was a really big deal for us. And then, we have great partnership with Locana, and the work that you guys have done, with Lemur really has enhanced the capabilities that we're able to offer our customers, which has been great.
And many of you might know Lemur is the Locana mobile client that brings a real GIS experience to mobile workflows. So we'll talk about that in another show, but that's one of the places where SAP has really adopted the use of Lemur and really championed the use of Lemur to create these seamless field workflows. Kind of exciting. So let's start though. I want to take a step back. I want to start a little bit at the beginning and just tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe where you grew up, school, and family.
Sure, absolutely. I think anybody who spent any amount of time with me knows that I grew up in the Boston area, in Malden, Massachusetts, and huge Boston fan. So the team has to put up with that for sure, especially if we're doing well.
But you're talking about Boston Celtics? Are you
Celtics, Boston Red Sox, the Patriots, you name it. I'm cheering for it. So it's
who did the Red Sox just get? It was on the
Story.
Yeah, they got Trevor Story.
Trevor Story from Colorado. So I guess he's gonna move from shortstop to second base because we have Xander Bogaerts playing short. So
hard to beat Xander Bogaerts. I have a son-in-law that lives in Denver, and I told him, did you see that the Red Sox got Trevor Story? And he said, what are the Rockies doing? I said, the same thing they always do. Losing.
I can't speak to the Rockies, but that's quite an infield we have between Devers and him. So it's good stuff. But married and have 3 wonderful daughters, 1 in college and 2 in high school. So keeps us extremely busy, and they're constantly on the move.
So back in the day, you went to school at NC State, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how long did you spend in Raleigh?
So I was there for 4 years, and actually worked at a small company there, doing IT related work when I first graduated, and then moved up here to Pennsylvania, and started my illustrious career with SAP for now, which has been the last 21 years.
Well, I did a little searching to see who you were. Read an article, and it talked about the things that you thought were important to utilities, right? And one of those things turned out to be sustainability, security, and demand management. Tell us why you think those are important to utilities and what you have to offer that can help them.
Yeah, so I'll just step through them. I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that sustainability is top of mind for utilities today. And from an SAP perspective, when we think about sustainability, it really means how do we help them deliver. So when we think of sustainability, I think the entire planet is really thinking about the impacts of climate change and then what we're doing to address that. And so in our vertical, you see a lot of utilities, coming out with initiatives to get to carbon zero, whether it's 2030, 2035, 2040, 2050. They're actively working on that problem now, right? And so what does that mean for us from an SAP perspective and how we help them with that evolution? So on the generation side, that the change in the mix of the technologies that need to be used in order to do that reduction is going to play a big role. And so for us, we have to make sure that our platforms are flexible enough to accommodate those innovations and technologies. So all the different types of distributed resources that utilities are looking at, whether it be solar, wind, which are prevalent today and they're growing, but you also have, batteries, you have the blowing out of EVs in the space and the impact that's going to have over the next decade. All of these things have to be accounted for from a systems perspective. So a lot of the work that we've been doing with our customers is making sure that we have the platforms and then the solutions that help accommodate for those changes.
Yeah, I think that obviously you guys are pushing out and innovating in all of these different ways with the customer in mind, and that's the way you have to do things, right, to make it work for you. One of the things that you might have known, you might have seen this, Locana as a SAP partner, we recently rebranded from Critigen. We were formerly Critigen.
Yep.
And I just want to see if we're back on here. Let's see. Tom Tertio says this session is so in demand that you broke the LinkedIn. Hey, Tom, so tell me if you're seeing it now, because I'm totally interested. But Locana recently became Locana because we saw these things happening in the marketplace. We wanted to, kind of change our identity to reflect a new and changing marketplace. With the demand for maps in most workflows or most everyday life. Yeah. The expansion of data that's just huge and getting bigger all the time. And then the need to have connected enterprise, we felt like that those are the trends that we see, and they are affecting our market in a big way. Do you see those same trends affecting you guys?
Yeah, without question. I think there's an expectation, not just in the utilities industry, but across the board. I think everybody expects to have the ability to be able to view whatever it is they want to view on a map. And when you start to think about how that actually gets enabled, and how the actual data ends up getting surfaced for that end state end user, that's a big undertaking. There's a lot of things that have to fall into place correctly in order for that to happen very seamlessly for the customer. So I think about the partnership we have with Esri. I think about the partnership we have with Locana. And I think about the work that our teams have done, people like Tom Tercio and Ron Gray and a lot of others around how we've been able to GEF framework when we start to look at our asset data and geo-enabling that and what all of that means. I mean, it's a huge undertaking, but there's an expectation now that it has to be delivered that way, and people want to see it that way, and they want to do work that way. And so it's just an imperative that we do the work with our, with my colleagues, but also with your organization as well as Esri to make it happen.
Yeah, we had a slide that we were showing to your team at some point, just kind of showing the interconnectivity of SAP and Esri, and kind of we kind of see ourselves as part of the cog that makes that whole thing work. Talk to me a little bit about the relationship between SAP and Esri. Like, how deep are you in that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been great, and it's been evolving, and I think it's been getting more and more enhanced and aligned. And so talked a little bit about the technology side of it with us working with them to re-platform ArcGIS onto HANA. And that was a big deal because it really kind of allows for that seamless integration from really moving our data over to the map. And that was a big part of it. But I also think the other part that we really focused on was how we work together. So how we align our teams, how do we go to market together effectively for our customers? And we've done a lot of work probably over the last, I'd say 3-4 years to really enhance that and get a lot more proactive in how we collaborate together, how we're having that conversation and really showing up for our customers. And that's been probably the biggest change. And ultimately you can do all the things that need to happen from a technology perspective. But if you're not engaging in the right way with the customers, then it doesn't really, it's not where the rubber meets the road. So you have to do that part of it.
Well, I'm curious, like how do your customers, the people where you show up jointly, loosely or tightly, coupled with Esri, how do they perceive that? Like, is that something they appreciate, or is it confusing? How do they?
Yeah, it's actually a really good question. And just as a bit of background, we were talking about this beforehand. I think, there was kind of historical precedent set where, when you start to think about, where Esri resided and where SAP resided, we were two different spots. Esri is on the operational side, whereas SAP is really on that business and IT side of the equation. And I think as we've seen this convergence happen across the industry over the last number of years, we've started to show up together. And at first, I think there was some confusion in the marketplace of like, well, why are these two things, being talked about at the same time?
Right.
But I think I've seen more recently with our customers as well that they're starting to meld those things together organizationally, and they recognize the fact that this is all coming together and the need for them to address it more holistically and more at an enterprise level when they think about joining together all of these different data sources in a way that's going to be able to have the work done through a map interface.
Yeah, I mean, the number of clients who tell me, hey, we want to operate from a map, and they're not thinking of it like I want to use SAP from a map. They're just saying, I just want to use a map. Right. And so, and you talked about the reasons, and I was interested when you're talking about, like, when you talk to your customers, the reasons that they want to operate from a map. I thought that was pretty smart. Tell the listeners.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think there's just a different expectation that's been set around kind of how people get work done. And so when you think about other things that people might do outside of the realm of SAP and Esri and Locana, they have these experiences, right, with whether it be Amazon or other things. And then there's this expectation set that they should be able to do these same things at work in the same way, right? Really easy, really intuitive, without a lot of training. So for me, it's one of those things where the broader expectations that's been set about kind of how they can do things through their phone or, a tough book or an iPad or whatever the case may be, they just expect it and they want it to be easy. They want it to be intuitive and they want it to work. And so the other part of that is, when you start to think about kind of where the things that need to happen in order for that to happen effectively, we talked about WhereMatters. And I said, where the data resides matters as well, and how that data actually gets moved and then gets surfaced is extremely important. But at the end of it, it really needs to be seamless to the end state customer, and it just needs to happen effectively. They don't need to understand all of those underpinnings. Well, all of those underpinnings only happen by having SAP and having Esri and having partners like Locana really work seamlessly together to make sure that it's all coming to fruition for that customer.
Yeah, that all makes sense. And that's the smart thing I heard you say. And I think that
I was trying to recall exactly which smart thing you were alluding to, but then I remembered.
I think I told you when we were just getting ready to do this, I think that the depth of your buy-in to the location value proposition is pretty staggering to me. Like I've dealt with SAP for a long time, and this seems new to me, but we won't go too far down that rabbit hole. We do have Ron on, we have Dawn, we have Sam, we have Jackie, we have Dave and Jeremy and Michael. Thanks everybody for being here. It's a pleasure to have you. So if you have any questions, you can also put those in comments, because I know that Mike will be happy to take some questions. One of the things you had said to one of my colleagues is that you see S4 as a location intelligence platform. Now, I know we just talked about this to an extent, but specifically S4, how do you see that as location intelligence platform?
Yeah, I think when you start to look at kind of how we've developed out our platforms and the evolution from our earlier versions, last version being ECC, and moving that to S4. And I alluded to it, but the GEF framework, so the geo enabled framework, and that work being done to make sure that we absolutely have the ability to put a geolocation tag on every asset that we put into our enterprise asset management system is really foundational to being able to do the things that our customers expect us to be able to do from a business outcomes perspective. So that was really where the statement came from. And, I think it's become really it's become foundational, and it's just a baseline expectation that now our customers have, that these things should be in place in order for them to do what they need to do.
Yeah, baseline expectation. I think that's pretty cool. You said something earlier that you said it just works.
Yeah.
And I thought that, that's the expectation that clients have when they're talking about having a map in their workflow. Then the point is they just want it to work. It just works.
Yeah. It's kind of like being a ref, right? If everything's working fine, everybody's fine, no comments happen. But when that thing doesn't work effectively, you hear it very loud and clear from your user base. So it's really important that kind of these things that we've all worked on collectively just do end up working, right? And those integrations and all of the tie-ins that need to happen in order for that to happen effectively takes a lot of effort. But I think it's been great so far, and I'm looking forward to see what we do next together.
That's awesome, yeah. Really awesome. I have to say Bonnie's in the house, so welcome, Bonnie. If I didn't say Bonnie's in the house, I would be in trouble. And Will's here, so thanks Will for joining us. Again, if you have questions, put them in the comments. I want to hear a little bit about Rise. I told you I sat through the sales meetings. We got invited as your partner to sit through the sales meetings, and I was just stunned by the amount of emphasis on Rise. So maybe you could first tell my listeners and our customers what Rise is and how you see that influencing your go-to-market this year.
Yeah, I think the statement I made to you before is that really this is the most important thing that we're doing with our customers now. And I think for the next number of years, it's going to be a huge amount of focus for us. And so essentially, for those who are not familiar, Rise is not a product. Rise is really that enablement and that kind of how to actually get from where you're at today with SAP, with whether you're on ECC or S4, whatever systems you're running, whether they be on-premise, maybe in a hyperscaler, how do they evolve into kind of this new cloud version of SAP? And I think the thing that SAP recognized was that we needed to do a lot to make sure that we were supporting our customers in that evolution. And really, Rise was the outcome of that. And so we've been now doing this for a full year, and we've started to really see some good outcomes. We've had customers move to the cloud, and we've had precursors. I think Rise was really making sure that we really surrounded our customers with all the things that they needed to do in order to be effective in this kind of new cloud landscape. So when you think about kind of what happens when you run SAP in the cloud and how that gets supported, how you operate, how you actually receive new innovations, all of those things change from the way you did it before. And so when I started at SAP, years and years ago, implementations were, 12, 18, 24 months.
Right.
And you went through a really detailed design and build and test and then you went through the training, and then it got delivered out, and that took a lot of time, a lot of effort. So the outcomes took a lot of time to happen. In the cloud world, the expectation is completely different. It's much more iterative in nature, right? And once you are up on these platforms, the flexibility that you have and the ability to be able to move a lot more, quickly to address whether it's regulatory concerns, whether it's business concerns or challenges that you have and you need to address, you now have the ability to do it. I was having a conversation recently with somebody, and they were stating before they had implemented the new kind of version of SAP, it would take them months and months and months and maybe even up to a year to just make small changes if the regulators came at them with new requirements. And now with the new system in place, they can do those things in a matter of a month or 2 months, which is a huge benefit to having this platform in place, being in the cloud, having that flexibility, having that agility. It all makes, I'll say it's table stakes in this new world, and how people just need to be more agile.
Yeah. Flexibility and agility. Mm-hmm. Those are, they sound like buzzwords, but actually those are social drivers. They're like, they come from somewhere else. We're kind of following the trend and saying, hey, our customers need flexibility and agility. We're not trying to force that on anybody. It's just a need that the market has.
It's not just what we do as well. I mean, everything in life moves faster now, right? And things evolve quicker. And so in our realm, our need to respond to that and making sure that we have the right platforms in place to be able to do that. That's really what RISE is all about, is providing our customers with that flexibility. And, it's going to be I think a good and fun journey with a lot of challenges. And, frankly, we're still, figuring it out. I'd say we're a lot better today than we were a year ago, and I'm sure we'll be better next year than we are this year. And I think we're really getting closer to understanding those things. I saw something on LinkedIn, I think right before we went on live, Microsoft is actually going to RISE, which is a huge announcement. So they're a big SAP shop. Their business runs on SAP. And so they're moving from their current version of SAP to the cloud versions, which is extremely exciting. And I think it's a testament to the work that's been done and the evolution that we've seen with how we've been able to really kind of evolve into this new model. So exciting news.
That's a really exciting piece of news there. I didn't see that. I haven't been in my computer too much today. But that's pretty exciting for you guys.
Yeah, when you think about an organization the size of Microsoft and the scale that, they operate at, and the needs that they have in place, for us to be able to, them to have the belief, it's huge.
I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here, because I know you guys, you're not GIS salespeople, right? But I'm curious, how do you see scalable GIS in the cloud being part of the whole RISE service offering that you're making? Like, how does GIS in the cloud play a role there?
I think the same rules apply, right? The idea of having your GIS system have the ability to be able to evolve and adopt new things more quickly is going to be, the same rules from an SAP perspective of needing to deliver, new technologies and addressing challenges that our customers have. The same thing's happening on the geospatial side. So being able to have that in the cloud, as opposed to maybe, in a data center or, in a hyperscaler, and having that flexibility is going to be part and parcel of how they operate, and how these two things even get, more intertwined as we move forward.
I see Locana being very instrumental in RISE success because of that.
Yeah, I agree.
Having those systems both in the cloud and working together seamlessly make tons of sense. If you were to talk to the people that work in your chain of command, what would you have to tell them about, the importance of location for business success with their clients?
Well,
I mean, not that you haven't already told us.
I was going to say, we have had these conversations quite a bit. And, a few of the folks that are online here with Prakash and with Tom Tertio have really done a good job of making sure those, I'll say, important elements are understood and how SAP is approaching them. But I really think, there's a couple of things I talked before about kind of how we partner, right? And how we go to market together between our two organizations as well as Esri has been a huge component of that. And so a lot of what we've done and the work we've done with our teams is making sure they have a clear understanding of how they tie off with Esri, with Locana, with other strategic partners that we have in the space, and making sure that we're showing up in the right way and we're really addressing the needs, whether it be, field service, asset manager, what we do with Lemur, and then ArcGIS, how all those things play and tie together, and how we're having a business specific conversation about how we're achieving those things with those solutions as the underpinning.
Yeah, I think of it as like a tidy value proposition, right? When we're working together correctly, then it doesn't feel like we're coming in and pitching. It feels like we're coming and talking about business outcomes. We're coming in and talking about how to overcome these specific challenges that all enterprises of all shapes and sizes are facing today.
Yeah, without question. A lot of times it really doesn't matter kind of what the actual specific pieces are, and it really is about how we're helping them achieve those outcomes and address those challenges and the things that they want to now do from a geospatial perspective. Just enabling that and having it all be seamless to them is really it's been a strength for all of us.
Yeah, when I go home, I'm going to clear out a space on my whiteboard and I'm just going to write, "It just works." Michael O'Donnell, it just works. So
well,
that's got to be the mantra.
It's a good mantra to have, and hopefully we can make it a true one.
Good. So last call for questions, because we're about to close this one out. So if you have a question, please put it in the comments so that we can get it addressed. But I just want to thank everybody who came, Tom, Mark, Prakash, especially good comments, and thanks for putting the link in there, Prakash. Michael, thanks for being here. Dave, I think that's probably Dave Saravo, if I'm not mistaken. And Jackie Reeder, thanks, Jackie, for being here. Jim McCardle, all the rest of y'all, thanks for being here today. Any last words for everybody who's watching? I'm
surprised that Dave Saravo or Jim McCardle or even Tom Tertio don't have any questions for us.
I am too. That shocks me beyond belief, but oh well, that's okay. They're probably saying, well, we covered everything just right.
Yeah, I doubt that, but we'll take it.
Okay. Maybe we'll do a follow-up if all the questions come in later.
Sounds good.
Okay. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and I appreciate you welcoming me into the SAP headquarters today. And hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
That work?
Bruce, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Thanks everybody for being on, and look forward to next week's live stream. Watch this space. All right, everyone.